Yes, hello everybody. It's 7 o'clock on the nose. It is June 26, 2025. The month is almost over. I love June. Typically, I love June. Obviously, you get the solstice, you get the longest days. You also get some of the sweetest nights. It's really good. Now we're going to start getting into 110% bugs. I still haven't seen the first lanternfly of the year. I'm sure it's all coming around. I'm sure all the little nymphs are developing somewhere. And I'll see that fluttering piece of crap come down and flop onto the driveway somewhere with its red wings. Very clumsy animal. Another thing we can thank China for. Clumsy bug. That lightning, the lanternfly. I can't wait to see how it has evolved this year, because there was a marked evolution in its evasive maneuvers between year one and year two. And now that they are just normalized around here, I can't wait to see what happens next. Maybe they'll start using shanks. Start carrying around small knives with them that they small pieces of metal that they filed into a pointy end. That's what's coming next with the lanternflies. So it's Thursday. We're gonna have a good time. In the first half, we have a few minutes with Rich Baris. I want to talk to him about New York a little bit. In the second half, we have a little bit of time with Tony Arburn, and in between, we have time for banter and extras and taking calls and all that stuff. And that's it. Now tonight is going to be the last night of shows in the studio this week, or is it? I don't know. Keep your notifications on tomorrow. You never know. You never know what happens in the middle of the day or something like that. You just don't know. At night, I have an idea, though, because Adel and I had a really good show, taking it back at 4 o'clock. It was just he and I. And I think it was so good. I want to put it out there tomorrow night and see what you guys think. It's pretty provocative, I think. Anyway, we'll see what happens later on. But Rich Baris is going to be joining us in about 20 minutes or so we have some time to get ourselves together. I hope you all enjoy yourself, and I also want to thank our good friends over at Badlands for having us on. I think that John Harrell, the Badlands, is going to be on with us on July 10th. That is still on the books. I can't wait to talk to him that night. But we have great Thursday nights booked well into August at this point. I think that's going to be our G. Edward Griffin night. It's going to be on a Thursday night. I have so many awesome guests that are coming in. We're going to be talking to a psychedelic DJ. His name is Matt Xavier. So many things. So many things. I don't have the full schedule over here with me. I just have tonight. Jeff Harmon's going to be on with us on Monday, June 30th. A little bit of an astrological dive with him again. Nephilim Death Squad, I think they're on with us July 1st. July 2nd, the actual Independence Day, Chris Ann Hall. She'll be stopping by to say hello. And then July 3rd, next Thursday, Jay Gulanello will be in. We'll talk about a whole bunch of things. But I also want to pay a little bit of a special attention to Lou Gehrig that night as we cast off into Independence Day weekend. So I just love this time of year. I really do. Almost as much as I love the fall. There's just something about those 2 weeks or so leading up to Independence Day, and I'm so happy that we're going to be celebrating it under the current circumstances, given what it could have been. And just, I don't know, be grateful. I'll tell you what else I'm grateful over. I took blood today. I had this on the schedule for a little bit of time now. Wasn't going to tell anybody, because if I told people and at the last minute I said, hey, let's just wait until the fall, I wasn't going to have anybody throw it in my face. So you know what? No. I had a couple of sleepless nights, but it was perfect. Everything went well. I put my pillow underneath my knees. Just lay. My doctor came to my house. I said, listen, I need Jay Gulanello gave me a whole bunch of things that I needed to get. I said, Jay, I want to see where the hell I'm at, how everything looks on the diet, and nutrition end after all this time of sticking to this, and I want to make some tweaks. I want to see how everything's going. He said, all right, this is what I want to see on top of all your. I said, all right. So I gave all the things over to my doctor, and she said, oh, it's okay. Gotcha. I'll see you at 8:30 on Thursday morning. So she made a house call. And I said, Doc, how many vials are we looking at here? Just wondering. She said, I think about 5. I said, oh no. I said, no. She goes, don't worry. It's only like a teaspoon and a half. I said, are you serious? I thought, no, a teaspoon, tablespoon and a half. I said, I thought for sure that those vials were like a tablespoon each. It's crazy. 5 vials. And like 3 of them were the big ones. And only a tablespoon and a half. I thought I was giving her like a liter today. 5. So, but that all went well. I'm happy. Huge load is off my shoulders. Last night I was extra stressed out because I knew what was coming. Knew what was coming. So stupid. But I think today went a long way in. I just have to start practicing. I'm going to draw my own blood every night on air just to get this out of my system. She used the baby gauge on me, and I didn't even feel it going in. That's what she said. I didn't even feel it going in. And suddenly, 20 liters of blood was out of me. I'll get it all back, though. I am a pro at making new blood. Anyway, I had this last night. Matt kind of dragged me off course because we started talking about the prostate gland and its role in urination. And I didn't actually was able to tell you about what the hell happened with everything. Let me see here. What the hell? Hold on. Wait a second. Yeah, here it is. Here's the exact thing that I had to talk about last night. So I had this email sent to me. Pee muscle. And the email said, squeeze here to pee stronger and faster. If you've been struggling to pee lately, now obviously probably something for your prostate health or whatever the hell else. But I'm telling you, I have never seen spam email worded this way before. First of all, just to say pee muscle instead of, I don't know, something prostate, but pee muscle. It just sounded so, I don't know. It hit me a weird way. And then for them to say squeeze here instead of click here, squeeze here to pee stronger. Now I'm thinking of pee muscles and squeezing muscles and pee that can't come out fast and strong. It comes out weak and slow. I'm thinking about dribbling pee and swollen glands. Like I'm deleting this, even if this was my problem, which is not, thank God. Anyway, I got an email from Pablo out there in the audience. It said, Frank, WTF? What was the pee muscle email about? You left us hanging. I got to know. That's pretty much it. It was just the wording. It was just the wording of the email. I haven't seen spam worded like that before, and I'm going to have to keep an eye out. Maybe it's a new generation of spam. But yeah, Matt and I went off the rails with that one for a little bit, and that's what we have. All right, and so for this next story, since, as we all know, pee is stored in the balls, I thought it would be important to mention that the guy that was the young kid that was brought over with Elon Musk and the Doge team, Big Balls, that everybody learned about a few months ago, well, he's no longer working for the U.S. government. The technologist Edward Korstein, a key operative in Elon Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency, who's gone by the name Big Balls Online, has resigned, the White House tells Wired. Oh, and now it's behind a paywall, so it doesn't matter. We got everything we needed out of that one. So Big Balls is gone, and with it, all of the pee in Washington, D.C. All right. Is there anything else I had for you over here? I guess one last thing. We are putting together, this is the final couple of days. We are going to, we're still looking for a couple of fan submissions for our newsletter. July is the last month that is going to be a monthly newsletter. We are going to a quarterly newsletter after that, and we're looking for all sorts of audience submissions. So please send us pictures, captions of family road trips, vacations, technical accomplishments. Have you rebuilt a car? Did you fix a lawnmower? Is there some crazy thing? Did you successfully employ electroculture in your home garden? Did you use electroculture to disperse clouds and chemtrails above your house? Tell us something. Did you kill the first lanternfly of the season? Go to quitefrankly.tv, hit the forum, and you'll see pinned to the top of all the pinned posts, there is photo submissions for the newsletter. Please, it would be wonderful to have 2 or 3 more of you guys and gals featured in the newsletter, which is really all about servicing you, focusing on you and having a good time. So that's all I got for you. Let's get this one underway. Rich Baris will be with us shortly. Oh, wait. Before we go anywhere, I got to mention, because it's a Badlands night, the Great American Restoration Tour. It's heading back to Deadwoods, South Dakota, my friends, August 14th to 17th this year. Featured speakers, John Harold himself, Chris Paul. We've got J-Triad, Alpha Warrior, Ash in America. Oh, boy. Jordan Sather, and, of course, Zach Payne. Well, like I told you, he's getting crazy. He is crazed for attention. He wants people to just arm wrestle. He's going to be arm wrestling. He's doing the dunk tank. The dunk tank is going to be filled with ketchup. He said, I'm not doing water. Water is for that's terrible. Ketchup. And then there's going to be a celebrity boxing match afterwards between Brad and Zach. Brad Zerbo, Zach Payne, they're going to box each other on the last night on August 14th. That's going to be huge. So take a look at that. That's badlandsmedia.tv/events. Get there. Go to South Dakota. All right? We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Rich Baris coming up.
I'm a little weenie looking for a bun, just a teeny weeny itty bitty one. If I keep on cooking, I'll be overdone. Pickle and onion, hot dog. Get out of here! What was that?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's rip the
All right. It's the time of the season. Well, I had a few things I would like to do up front before Rich shows up, which I think he's just kind of floating around. He's here. I was just talking to him not too long ago. Let's see. We had a couple of things. I want to go to New York City to kind of set the table for that one, because I got questions for Rich. And we know how crazy it is, but I just want to know about real fallout, and I want to know about how this is going to affect not only the city on a political level, but also the party that is being really dragged now. I have broken this down so many times over the years, and it's becoming more and more evident, and self-evident, I should say. And we discussed it very clearly today on Taking It Back. And I think I really have to rebroadcast that tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, because it's, it was articulated, I think, very clearly. The Democrat Party is being dragged by true believers. They're being dragged by true believers. Everything that they only ever lied about for years to keep everybody in orbit, because they know how much of a great great businesses is. The generation of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, that was the day trading generations that knew how great this was to promise all the extreme stuff, knowing you can't get it and you shouldn't get it because it'll kill people. And when people don't get it, just blame it on Republicans and how we have to keep winning elections. But really, you're just maintaining status quo, staying in orbit, being able to make all the money you can. Yeah, selling away pieces of the country from time to time, making a trade deal that you know is not good for it. It doesn't matter. It's your antique shop. You know, you're in Congress that long. The United States is your antique shop. You can deal with it however the hell you want. We don't really matter. Well, they're getting dragged by a young generation of people who are not patient in waiting anymore. Because this generation, especially Generation Z, is really starting to realize that there's less and less opportunity for them around. You know, millennial, my generation, we're still able to get out there and be gainfully employed and, you know, go out there and make something of ourselves and have things be a little bit more fertile for growth. But things are really hitting the skids right now, and there is a lot less opportunity, and upward mobility is a lot harder. And I think that this generation, especially now, is becoming a little bit more politically viable, is dragging the Democrat Party by the neck into the craziest places you can think of, because they're true believers, and I think they've never been told that they can go anywhere else with their considerations, their political considerations. You know, the solution to any problem, real or imagined, has to be to go farther left, to confiscate more, to spread more out, and to make the victims equal with their perceived oppressors once again. And there's so many things that are coming out. You can see the programming is so strong right now. So many people have lost their minds. They don't know that they're not in control of themselves. They think they're on the cusp of history or some kind of new evolution in society, but they have no control of themselves, and they have no way of really assessing the situation. So all their sensory equipment is fried. Listen to this. This is from Wall Street Apes. Zohran Mamdani plans on making new laws saying it doesn't matter where companies are headquartered. If you do business in New York City, they must pay his new increased corporate tax rate. So they can't relocate to lower taxes to save money. I don't know what this means. Like if they sell something, I don't know. But anyway, listen to this absolute lunatic. He's smart. I'm smart. Now, what is he creating? Nothing. He's a taker. That's the ultimate irony here. You have people who pretend to be the opposition to greedy industrialists, or people who want to go out there and it's profit at all costs. And what do? They take from the only productive people on the planet, and they steal from them. That's all they do. That's all they do. He's talking about Trump-proofing the city by destroying everything. Wow. God. Just the way that he speaks is fucking disgusting. The tone of his voice, the way he enunciates, it's fucking disgusting. Disgusting. Holy shit. You know, maybe make $1 million. It's just, if you make $1 million, $20,000 is a rounding error. Just going to take it. We're going to take $20,000, and you're going to love it. You're going to feel it. You're going to benefit from it. Really? I don't make $1 million, and I lose 4 months out of every year of my labor. It goes to one government agency or another. 4 months of my year is just given up. And I don't feel shit. I don't feel the benefit of anything. Oh, you will when you need your Social Security. You can shove it right up your ass. The best thing you can do one of the best things you can do for the upcoming generations who are still young, just getting into the workforce, is exempting them from Social Security so they can keep more of what they want and actually learn some responsibility to open up a retirement account. How about just groom people to be responsible? That would be nice, because then there would be an account with money they put in that would be waiting for them, that isn't being squandered by some fucking... God. Wowie. They talk like this, and it's, New York is not an island, ladies and gentlemen. Not an island. I know you say, whoa, get out of New York. Well, we've got an issue. This is happening all over the country, especially in red states that has a big city. It's probably got these people in it, and they probably have a considerable amount of power there. You guys and gals in Texas and Tennessee, you know all about that, don't you? This is not a get out of there kind of a situation. It's all over the place. You got to wonder what the hell's going on. I don't know if we're going to get around to it tonight, but we definitely talked about it today at 4:00. But immigration is a very big question, a very big topic that needs to be discussed. I'm not talking about illegal immigration, because this guy is legal. He was naturalized 7 years ago, and 7 years later, New York City has a Muslim communist who could very well become mayor. Now, I don't know what the Democrat Party is going to do to put someone up there to compete with him. If they're going to ask Eric Adams to run as an independent, or I don't know what it is, but traditionally, especially in the last however many years, if you win the Democratic primary in New York City for mayor, you're probably going to become the mayor. So it's a big thing there. And now we can also break this down by who's actually voting. Is there some aspect of fraud there, but also what does the electorate really look like? Who's driving this? We saw those people who were driving this. It's exhausting. It really is. It's an exhausting mess. And yeah. Now I want to make sure that that Rich got the correct link, because you're supposed to be in already. But yeah, that's 1 minute of him going on and on and on about this. I don't know, man. I don't know. Where the hell's it all go? Where does it go? All right. Well, while we're waiting for Rich, I also have one other thing that I probably should have done first, but this, because it was brought up on the show a couple of times this week, there was a little bit out of the Benjamin Netanyahu trial thing. A couple of people asked me, or they brought up whether or not their thoughts of whether or not Benjamin Netanyahu was going, now that war has been tamped down at least a little bit, whether or not that means he's going to be convicted of some sort of any of the charges that are awaiting him. Well, I got this today, was sent my way. Trump demands end to Netanyahu's graft trial. The U.S. saved Israel. Now it's going to save Bibi. Fresh off striking Iranian nuclear facilities together with Israel, U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday demanded the end of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's ongoing criminal trial. Breaking news. I was shocked to hear that the state of Israel, which had just had one of its greatest moments in history and is strongly led by Bibi Netanyahu, is continuing its ridiculous witch hunt against their great wartime prime minister, he wrote in a lengthy post on Truth Social. I mean, we need to do this again? I'm like, okay, we have been rid of a potentially nuclear Iran again. There's always something that pushes us back from the brink. And this time it was big, beautiful bombs. So can't this just go on without us commenting on it? I don't get it. But I just had to bring it up because everybody else, we had a few people actually write in about it, and that became a short topic of conversation on the show. So You can also send in super chats. Let me know what you're thinking and how you're feeling about things. That is quite frankly superchat.com. There's the YouTube. There is both Rumbles, the Quite Frankly and the Badlands. And then there is the Gold Pills, which Cave Toad is out there. He's the first one that came in. He said, squeeze here, P muscles instead of Kegeling. Would that be Peegling? I guess so. It's the Pegel muscles. Women have Kegels and we have Pegels. Witchy Poo says, hello, everyone. I've been having problems with pills, so I've been watching on YouTube. Well, you made that work, so I'm happy to hear about it. Welcome back, Witchy Poo. All right. So, okay. I guess I'm going to have to go on a really quick break. Really quick break to figure out where Rich is and make sure he had the right link. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You know, I have friends of mine who are still very active sexually, and they use Trojans, lubricated.
Howdy, Badlanders. Looking for something new to grab from your friends at Badlands Media and Rise Attire? Summertime is here. We got you covered. All new tank tops for men and women, featuring new iterations of the Devolution design in black, red, white, and even blue and green digital camo. Sick. We got them for Psywar and Clown World too. How about these bad boys? Psywar, Clown World, and Devolution beach towels to help you spark up a conversation with your new best friend or future spouse at the pool. And by popular demand, we've got all new athletic women's leggings that'll have you red pilling all the ladies in your Pilates class, whether they like it or not. Too bad. This is Badlands, baby, and we're strapped. Get some and support the new media parallel economy as much as f***ing possible at badlandsmedia.tv/rise.
Scientists were able to mimic Netanyahu's voice by recreating his mouth and vocal cords with a 3D printer. It allowed them to produce a single sound.
Welcome to Perpetual Health Minute, brought to you by Quite Frankly. The U.S. dietary guidelines are evidence-based, right? The reason that Americans are so sick is not because the guidelines themselves are flawed, but it's because Americans aren't following them, right? Well, on your screen, you'll see a graph based on USDA data from 1970 to 2014. What do you see? On the left side of the graph, you'll see a decrease of consumption in things like red meat, milk, and eggs, right along with the dietary guideline recommendations. And on the right side of the graph, you see an increase of things like vegetable oils, corn sweeteners, and corn products. So the next time somebody tells you Americans are only sick because they're not following the guidelines, you now have evidence otherwise. If you like this video, please follow the new Perpetual Health Rumble channel. You can also find us at perpetualhealth.substack.com. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and back to the show.
All right, and we are back. We are back on, and we have, I was just talking about a whole bunch of things that I need to ask this next guy over here, Rich Baris. He is the director of Big Data Poll. He is one of the best out there. And you know what? That's only with politics. And I hate politics these days. I'm hating it more and more. I can talk to Rich about anything. Ham sandwiches. And I think that we should start doing that more often, Rich.
Sounds good to me, brother. Sounds good to me. Politics is what it is. And it's like one of those things. And I imagine it's very much the same for the listeners. At times you hate it. And then when you try to give yourself a break, you just can't. You just can't stop, and it pulls you just when you think you're out. It pulls you back in, right?
Yeah.
Classic line, brother.
Well, yeah.
How are you?
Oh, I'm all right. I'm all right. Because you know what it is? If you're a soap opera fan, if you try to put some time into watching Young and the Restless or something like my grandmother used to do back in the day, or Bold and the Beautiful, I remember all the theme songs.
Days of Our Lives.
Days of Our Lives, General Hospital. I don't know what the hell. I can keep going. I'll keep going. Yeah. Eventually, you can just say, this is boring me. I'll come back some other time. You might take a couple of weeks off. You can catch up. There's really not too much. This stuff is harder because if you take your hand off the steering wheel, in many cases,
right.
you just lose it. You get taken with the current. And I want to talk to you about New York a little bit today. This primary, it's a horrendous indictment of the Democrat Party, I believe, which is already reporting that it has very little money and general appeal left. It also is bad news for the city. Even if this Zoran loses to some independent candidate, this is a really bad indicator for him to even be able to get this primary. So what do you think about this from a polling standpoint, demographic standpoint? If there's anything people are missing, go ahead.
Well, there is, I think, a little bit of a backstory here.
Okay.
And I think the Cuomo campaign knows this. But I did get a buzz from somebody, even though we may not all agree. Shocker, shocker. Pollsters still talk to each other. And I did know somebody who was polling the mayoral race right up until the final days, right? And there's no doubt that the bombing of Iran changed the trajectory of the race. And basically, that's what that call was about. Thanks for bombing Iran. Because of course they were not on Cuomo's side. So I don't, I don't dismiss that as the possibility. And I would look. We went over this a little bit on the show earlier this week. If you look at the results. Cuomo won Black Harlem. He won Hispanic areas, right? He got cleaned where basically there's the upper crust, gentrified, silk stocking, to uber white liberal, and from Queens everywhere, right? So I would tell people this because there seems to be a real misconception. New York City being very demographically diverse. And, if we only just didn't let so many taxi drivers in, right? I hear all this nonsense when the reality is that's not really true. Super uber rich and super left wing whites, especially educated upper crust whites, elected this or nominated this guy.
Yeah.
Not non-white voters. Look at the map and you'll see it. I just think that people have a complete wrong idea, and then you have people that I'm just beginning to just think are they cannot be helped, Frank, on the right. They're just like blame immigration or something, or like it's so ridiculous. It really is. Like, well, maybe if we didn't let in a bunch of non-Americans, they wouldn't nominate a radical left-wing communist Muslim, and didn't think who made all these horrible statements about 9/11. And I just got to laugh. Because Donald Trump won naturalized citizens in 2024. Newly naturalized citizens, he won them. And he did remarkable in the 5 boroughs.
No,
remarkable.
Yeah, and Rich.
Liberals.
And Rich on that, I was starting to talk about that on the way up. There's something to be said about how few how this I think he was made a naturalized citizen about 7 years ago. But what I was going to get to save until you came on was when you really think this was not a voting block of Muslims who are communist. I was going to say that this is once again you look at this, especially the support of rich white liberals, liberal women especially. When we were looking at the celebration of his, primary victory there, the whole headquarters was white women and white men and all that stuff. And I don't know what it is, especially if they are making over $1 million and they know how he's going to tax them all. If that's just something that they love to do out of self-flagellation or whatever.
That's right.
I don't know. Liberals, they're also very obsessed with their fantasies of defeating white colonialism, whatever the hell that is. So I actually believe that they fetishize people like this Mandani guy a lot too. So that's something I was taking note of.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of a juiced up Arab vote. You can clearly see that. But I don't think it's because I'm sure even many of them probably weren't affirming his ideas, Frank. There was this bit of a bitterness, in the last couple of days and, of that conflict. There was a bit of a bitterness from people that we know just voted for Donald Trump, last November. So there was going to be some kind of a political blowback to that, but they're not, they're not, just because that, again, you're Muslim does not mean you're communist, right? Or you're left wing, like this guy is left wing. And I think at this point, Republicans, well, actually, maybe, I don't want to say too much, but maybe soon I'll actually find out the answer to this myself firsthand. It may be the only play that they have is to get behind Adams. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. But if you really have no prayer to win this, if you split the vote, I don't see how on earth you could do that. So look, today I'm driving in the car and I'm coming back from the gym and I hear Clay Travis, which was just playing on the local radio, basically saying, I think there can be this split in the Democratic Party coming up. Everyone's talking about the MAGA fracture, but I think there's going to be a split because of this mayoral race, and people like AOC are going to fracture off. Look, let's play this clip of Chris Cuomo, and he goes into Chris Cuomo using profanity. By the way, it's kind of funny, going off on AOC and that wing of the party and everything, and I just chuckled to myself. They're in charge, Chris.
Yeah.
They are in charge. You keep bringing up your daddy's Democratic Party. That party is dead. That party has been dead. It just has a very good PR agent in the corporate media that makes, that makes this enormous effort. It's probably worth billions of dollars in in-kind campaign contributions to convince 50+1 of the American public that this is a party that still also includes moderates. The moderates sit there in the corner quiet and afraid, and what little left there moderates there even are. This is a radical party. It's just got a very good PR agent. That's it. They're in charge. Daddy's Democratic Party. Brother, you're a dinosaur. There is no Clintonian Democratic Party anymore. That's why Donald Trump and candidates who would run on his platform are winning voters that voted for Barack Obama. That wing that they keep talking about of the Democratic Party hasn't really voted Democratic since Donald Trump came on the stage. It's the truth. Some of them went back to Joe Biden in 2020. That happened, regardless of what everybody says about COVID and Donald Trump getting the election snagged from him over it, which I wouldn't even deny. But without a doubt, there were voters that thought Biden was, part of that Clintonian party. And we saw very clearly that that was not the case. First of all, Biden was an empty meat suit who was senile, and the administration was run by Ron Klain and 20-something-year-old left-wing fanatics. I mean, this is who they are. There is no, there are no more dinosaurs, Chris. There are no more dinosaurs. They're extinct.
Mm. On the back on New York City a little bit more there too. So you already mentioned Cuomo, and you want to talk about that generational divide. Here is Andrew Cuomo. Even though if it wasn't Andrew Cuomo, I think that the other thing there too is that somebody had to remember this is Andrew Cuomo, COVID Andrew Cuomo, and then of course there's just everything else that's attached to him, baggage wise and stuff. I really thought, I don't know. Do you believe that if it was anybody but him, this would have turned out differently, this primary, or is it really just a matter of the new generation is messaging in the way that I was talking to this to my buddy earlier on before too, and he brought up the question of whether or not fraud can be a part of it. I said, listen, all of it, it's all messy, but you have to understand something here. When you think about the message that this guy is putting forward, we were just listening to a minute worth of his terrible ideas on the Breakfast Club over there. I said, what are you going to do if you're the Democrat Party and you know that you're getting dragged in one direction? Are you going to resist that again? Because you already the only time in the last 8 to 10, 12 years they had organic movement on the campaign trail was Bernie Sanders twice, and they rooked him twice. That's it. So then you have this guy. It's organic. It looks organic. It's crazy, but it's organic. What are you going to do? So this couldn't have just been that Cuomo was a bad candidate. Is it really just that the message is losing now?
Yeah. I think from what I heard, Cuomo was actually leading for a while. I think, however, it was never Cuomo's to run away with, as some people thought it was. They elected Mayor Bill de Blasio. The guy was a card-carrying member, communist.
Yeah.
Like, people forget about this. And this guy was young, articulate, looked and sounded, he was a good candidate. As far as his ideas, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how he is the image, the optics of him as a candidate. They were good. He was well spoken. He spoke like an average younger person of his generation, whereas a lot of the older Democrats are completely out of touch. They speak like, just totally different. And this is important for people to understand. Democrats have kind of orphaned off a huge chunk of these young voters, and especially especially young whites that you would assume are liberal, right? Because that has been the pattern. That's been the case for so many decades in this country. But they orphaned a bunch of them off. And some people, they just don't get this. There's a lot of overlap, anti-establishment within these younger voters. And some of the reason why I'm giving so many warnings to Republicans. You're doing good with this young group, but if Democrats start to get creative, the word communist doesn't scare them.
Right.
The fact that he's a Muslim, it doesn't matter what kind of like radical thing you throw in his face. They don't see that. They don't see what you think you see. Communism is not a scary or dirty word to them. Fascism is, by the way.
Right.
But which is in truth what a lot of these people really are. Right. The AOCs, all of that wing of the party. Everyone keeps referring to them as communists. He is different, but in that wing of the party, they're really not. They're fascists. And Republicans have not really been able to capitalize on that. So Democrats cut from the same cloth, and that establishment corporate wing of the Democratic Party, they have no idea how to counter this, Frank. And that's why Republicans really have to watch their back. They have to watch themselves because they are not winning. That's another thing Clay brought up, which made me laugh. So many of these voters, this is why they voted Republican for the first time ever. It's like got to stop and laugh and correct them in your own mind. They didn't vote Republican. Many of them didn't. They voted for Donald Trump and left the rest of them blank. That's what happened in 24. So, the best thing you can do to guard against the rise of fanatics like this is to make sure that your message isn't stale. And when you see something like Trumpism, whether you like him, the person or not, his message appeals to an overlapping demographic that Democrats could get or even take back from Republicans without Trump with a heartbeat, because they're just looking for something new, Frank. And they're looking for somebody who speaks to them in those populist undertones. And by the way, they're anti-war.
Okay, so then
they're anti-war.
So then I was going to go there next. I saw somebody wrote that Benjamin Netanyahu got a little bit of a bump after the Iran strikes from the United States. I read that 80-something+% of Republicans, though I wasn't polled, approved of the Iran strikes that Donald Trump ordered. I just wonder what you're seeing on your end, because my big thing. Listen, I always have constitutional constitutional protests to things like this, but in Donald Trump's case, I just don't want him to be derailed by the same shit that so many other people have been derailed by, even though it's not in his in his genes to go out there and just he's a businessman more than he is a fighter and a warmonger. So I don't know. It seemed like a side quest that I was not comfortable with. I still really am not entirely, but I want to know what you see.
If I had the ability, I would literally share my screen with you right now, but I will just read to you some of the results that we have right now. All right. And I would argue that you're going to get this artificial bump for, certain figures like Netanyahu. And you may even start to see a little, in some polls we are not. I'll tell you what we're seeing. But Republicans have a rally to the flag, rally to their guy effect. you know, that's temporary, like it was when he shut down commerce during COVID. And by the way, very of those same people who were cheerleading for this protested when you argued against doing that back then, right? And it didn't work out for him. And it literally cost him his presidency. But that's not the impact that you have to worry about. This is what is happening. Some people like Trump and Netanyahu are getting slight bumps among people who would largely never vote for them anyway, and they're getting hurt among people who only vote for Donald Trump and that you need to keep in the Republican coalition. And people who are sycophants and yes men, you know, maybe their total job is to be on social media looking for their ass to get patted, or looking for someone like me to pat them on their ass and tell them, oh, yes, you're so smart. You're so right. Yep. Oh, Trump's doing great. That's not what I do. I measure public opinion and I tell you what's going to happen based on that public opinion. And I'm telling you, this is the first time since Donald Trump has been elected president that is is strongly disapproved among independents, has gone up now to nearly 4 in 10, which is what it was during his first presidency. It was in the lower 30s among the entire general public until this happened. And so why? What is doing that? That is the group of voter that isn't just like in the Republican bubble, right? And they're the ones that make the difference between whether or not you win an election, right? That makes the difference between whether you end up in Michigan, Mike Rogers, or you're Donald Trump. And you can't win without them. So everyone's focusing on the top line numbers when the top line numbers almost mean nothing. What matters is the demographics that are happy and the demographics that are not happy. And their concern is a valid, rational concern. And to see how some people react to those concerns is not going to help you with them, because they say to themselves, wait a minute, I think like that too, right? I think this could escalate. How do you know you're going to drop a couple of bombs and be able to contain it? You don't know that, right? 70+% believe that this thing is going to escalate. It may happen tomorrow or it may happen a year from now, but it's not going to lead to like this idea that you can just wash your hands of it, Frank, and walk away. More than a quarter of the country doesn't even want to be involved in the Middle East at all. They see no role for the United States in telling countries who needs to do what in order to stabilize the region or dictate who can or cannot have nuclear weapons. A Trump voter that was a Muslim voter in Michigan, what a great interview, flat out told us, my problem with this is that we elected him to be a peacemaker, not to lob bombs at Persian and Arab countries. And I ask you this, why is it that Muslim countries are filled with madmen who are going to use nuclear weapons when nobody else has except for the United States? But you can let Kim Jong-un, who you told you can't have nuclear weapons, his father before, this great madman, if he gets a nuke, he's going to use it and he's going to obliterate South Korea. She made such a good point. Why did they get to be treated like human beings who make rational decisions, but we do not? And this is the kind of voter a Republican can never win. They could never win them. And their number one priority, and she's of course one demographic, there are many that are into this like peace above everything, anti-war. But it comes not just from this, I won't prosecute a war for the sake of being anti-war. It's because they're distrustful of institutions. Just because Donald Trump is the president doesn't mean the Pentagon's in their mind getting any more honest, Frank, right? And honestly, let's be real. You can't tell me whether or not Fordo was destroyed or not. Not yet. You can't. You can't tell me the extent of what. That's not how these things operate.
Well, we're not, Rich. We're not even on a need to know basis enough to even be shown any definitive proof that there was. We were weeks or months away from there being a operational warhead in the country. We're never going to be shown that under any circumstances, because we weren't shown anything with Iraq, with Syria. We weren't shown anything. So the whole thing was just like holding your breath, and okay, well, hopefully nothing does pop off, even though I don't know.
Independents, Frank, 30% strongly disapprove of the attack to bomb Iranian nuclear sites. Another 20% somewhat disapproved. 18% strongly approved. 19 18% what approved. I mean, it's just these are not big numbers for prior conflicts for people who are celebrating this. Even if they think they're getting the numbers that they think are positive, I would just say you have no idea what you're talking about. It is who is saying what that matters more than anything. And when you see these kind of swings among independents that you just won, Frank, back in November, you just won them. When you're seeing those kind of swings against you, it's not good. It's not coming out of nowhere, okay? Are you willing to risk a war to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon? No, +4. In the height of the war drums banging, Frank, in the height of the war drums banging, no. Do you believe Iran posed an imminent threat to the U.S. before the U.S. conducted the bombings? No, 41. No, 41, yes, 39. A whole bunch of people just said, how the hell would we know? Right? So that's not a sufficient reason to risk conducting a strike in their mind, which could bring unintended consequences later. And by the way, the hubris from these people acting as if like, no, the assessment from the Pentagon is, look, you don't believe them? You don't believe we destroyed their sites and the nuclear capabilities? My response to that would be, you have to be an idiot. It doesn't matter who the president is. Is this your first Middle Eastern conflict? Nobody knows right now. They just told senators, by the way, behind closed doors, something very different than what you've been hearing publicly, which is we have a good confidence level. Very confident. Can you be sure? No. Can't be sure. Okay, so you're telling senators behind closed doors you don't know how, you are very confident you destroyed everything, but you can't tell them that you're certain you did, because that's not how these things work. It's just not. They don't know for sure themselves. They do their assessments, but they don't know. I mean, it's just a fact. And then this idea that you're just going to walk away and end the 12-day war, U.S.'s role in the 12-day war. Frank, how long was the Gulf War? Was it 12 days?
No.
No. It was far shorter than that, guys. You're talking about 48 hours, right? And yet it had enormous consequences. It's called Al-Qaeda. It wasn't a ragtag operation until he used it as a rallying cry. Look at the infidels soiled our holy lands. Saudi Arabia should never have been used like that. They're basically infidels, and the Saudi government let them do it. The only way to really push back on the great Satan is terror. And that's what, nobody even disputes this. That's what led to him being able to get the support for that organization, which ultimately led to the bombings on the World Trade Center, one and two, which of course ended up being 2 planes instead of a bomb in the building. So, the arrogance is stunning. It's just stunning to me.
Well,
but everyone loves to be in an echo chamber,
well,
Frank. You know
that's the thing that kills me here is because I have concerns and I have disapproval of, I don't know, when we talk about War Powers Act, forget about it. It doesn't, anybody who's ever used it, I understand that this is just the way that the game is played right now. So if you're in that area, it's a tool that you're going to use in your war chest, and that's just whatever. It just comes down to decision making. But other than that, you say, okay, well, nothing too bad has happened yet, and you just hold your breath at this point. But at the same time, to see the kind of craziness between people in the media. I mean, and listen, it's coming from both sides. There's crazy on both sides. There are people who are making extreme sweeping generalizations.
100%.
Going circular firing squad. Mark Levin is nuts.
But that's the thing. These people have always been crazy. Mark Levin is somebody. Guys, for the audience out there, if you have not heard me say this before, please pay attention to me right now. Listen to what I'm about to say and marinate on it. Mark Levin, during the Biden administration, outside of one side of his mouth, was telling his viewers that Joe Biden is senile and his mental capacity has been diminished beyond the point that he could even remain president of the United States. And on the other side of his mouth, he was advocating for the United States to get involved on behalf of Ukraine in the Russo-Ukrainian war, even if that meant the U.S. got into a direct conflict with another great nuclear power.
He's obsessed with Putin.
You think about it, though. The president's senile, and we need to prosecute a war. Who's going to prosecute the war, Mark? Who's going to prosecute the war? So Mark Levin wanted to hand over the regime change war for Russia, which is, of course, impossible.
Right.
He wanted to hand that over to the administrative state, and again, 20-something-year-old nutcase leftists who were controlling the puppet Joe Biden. You have got to be. It's not, and we're being told the Ayatollah is irrational. Frank, give me a break. Give me a break. Nation states are rational actors. Thank God. Thank God conservative talk radio hosts don't make decisions unilaterally for nation states, because that is an irrational thought, brother. An irrational thought. Start a conflict with a nuclear power over for the Ukrainians because they're what? So pro-West? Come on, bro. And by the way, support for Ukraine and even getting involved on behalf of Ukraine. Where was that during the height of this? In the beginning of this conflict, when the war drums were banging, way higher than support for this bombing. Way higher.
Oh, I know.
It collapsed within 3 months. Not even. I mean, it collapsed from its all-time high almost within a month.
I mean, people had the blue and yellow flags out over here, just all over my county. Westchester County was blue and yellow until the sun drained it of its color. And then slowly it just became one of those things where, unless you have a bumper sticker, it's hard to reverse that unless you scrape it off. But so it became a little bit of a virtue signal. Hey, I was on the right side when that was popular. But it's been a long time since liquor store owners around here have been dumping their Russian vodka into the sewers to show everybody how for the cause they are. And it's just, man, I don't know. I want to see all this stuff. I'd like to just see a complete withdrawal from it all. You really want to change. You really want to end the wars. Just withdraw support for everybody in every region that is not the United States. I just want to see every country, whether it be Ukraine, Israel, Luxembourg. I want to see every country put into its proper orbit immediately, and all foreign aid stopped all over the place. And let's just see how everything shakes out when the junkyard dog United States military is no longer just, sicked on everybody for any whether it's proxy or not. I would just love to see it. I would love to see it in my lifetime. I really would, for our children's sake. But Rich, we only had you for a half hour tonight. How about you let everybody know what you got going on for the weekend, how people can find you, and I can't wait to have you back so we can talk about your latest UFO sighting.
No, I can't believe that happened. Did you tell anybody about this?
I told everybody that the last time Rich was on,
whole family again. By the way, kids in the car, Laura in the passenger seat, saying.
This was the day, ladies and gentlemen.
One hell of a coincidence,
this was the day after that Rich was on to retell his massive UFO story. The next day, broad daylight, he texts me. He says, "You are not going to believe what just happened to me again." Yeah. Well, first of all, people want you to actually draw what the first UFO looked like. They want to see a drawing of that. But
my wife draws really well, actually. Maybe we can put that together.
I
don't know if MUFON took it. I may have the original drawings, because they'll separate you and they'll say, you know what, you go over there, like you go in that room, draw what you saw. And that's smart, by the way. I mean, like I said, these guys were they were pros, Frank. I mean, on how they investigate this, they were pros to the extent you can. But yeah, maybe we can put that together for people, because I think that's cool. I don't think she'd mind doing it.
What did this one look like? The new
this one I thought was, at first, I thought it was like a blimp. It was oval egg-like, elliptical, but then I realized it wasn't a blimp. There was nothing on it. It was super shiny. It looked like a giant silver egg in the sky.
And not a drone.
I know this sounds crazy. No, not a drone.
Was it stationary, or did it have any kind of movement?
Oh, no, it moved, Frank. It came out, went over the highway, did a little turn, came back, went back. It's crazy.
All right, yeah, we're gonna have to talk about this one, especially
Shiny, very shiny.
So we'll start with that next time you're on, and then we're gonna go into near-death experience data. Are you gonna have any fresh data on that soon?
I don't know how fresh we can do on that, but because the sample size for this is not, I mean, it doesn't change much. Like,
Okay.
there's no reason to go back and talk the same database. I will go and look and see how much over that period has been added to it. There are more, because I don't want people to think that it's uncommon and that it's the same sample set. It's not. Of course, it's added routinely. I just don't know how much that would be. I mean, because people have to fund this stuff, Frank. So it's like, how often it is worth going back to do what we did.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess the value of that is in the eye of the researchers, not me. I just do the actual work. They want to know what the answers are to that. But the astonishing thing is that it wouldn't matter if we added another 50,000 to that database. I'm telling you, they're all going to have these same things that are attributed to it, that are associated with those experiences.
Those fact patterns.
Yes. And that is really the story. That's the story. And then if you believe it, guys, the real value for you is that I really do think you will live your life differently. So when insane nutcases like Lindsey Graham and Mark Levin think nothing about killing a bunch of people or displacing a nation of 92 million, the size of Texas, you will have to answer for that one day. If these people are right, you will have to answer for that. They will not see it as good. This one's bad. Israeli kids is bad. Dead Palestinian kids, not a problem. Dead Iranian kids, not a problem. They're all children of God, and it's all a problem. And if you believe it, you will see. And there's no second chance for most of us. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, I can't wait to do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to when we get it on the calendar, I'm going to make it very well known, because that's the night I'm going to want people to call in with their NDE stories on the other end of that.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Would love that. Yes, because then I could even show that if you had that happen, Frank, I could even show you how a common interview would go. Okay. That would be cool.
All right.
I would love that.
All right. We'll work together on that one. Thanks again for the commentary tonight, man. I hope you have a great weekend.
All the best, brother. Take care.
There you go. And everybody, so Rich's Locals account is in the description of the episode. Go check out People's Pundit. The Locals is right in the description of the episode. Of course, he's the director of Big Data Poll. And going back to the immigration thing, the immigration question, when you look at all this, because of course, I was waiting to have that conversation with Rich, and I had it earlier on today. This is not as if like, oh, look, New York's been taken over by Muslims, communist Muslims. Like, no. This guy has been given special. I believe that people like this Mandani guy are fetishized by the type of liberal voters that really pull a lot of weight in cities like New York City. But it does. A lot of people have gone into some pretty controversial territory about what does this mean? What does this mean about immigration, legal immigration? You want to talk about just the movement of people over the border by cover of nightfall or the visa overstays, but what about legal immigration? Where are we getting people from, and how can you screen them? I mean, anybody can become a communist. 2 generations down the line, you can have a couple of nice, white as quartz, Polish people come on in, and their great grandchildren after a few generations of loving America and being all stars and bars and the Constitution. Suddenly they have a pair of red diaper doper babies, and there you have it. It's not really. It's never, whenever I've asked these questions, and over the years when I have called for complete immigration stoppage, I've called for that for years now, that at least 10 to 15 years, there's got to be no immigration whatsoever. We got to get back, that we got to clean things out. We got to get ourselves right. and we got to figure out assimilation. It's never really been a big race thing for me as much as it has been assimilation. Because, again, what are you going to do? You want, I don't want white or black communists in the country, but it's not illegal to have thoughts or bad ideas about how government should be. But we are a largely mal-educated society. The things that are supposed to be in place for us to assimilate and to all have common things, a common bond with each other, no matter where our families come from, the farther back you go. The institutions and the places we once were given those common bonds of understanding our nation's history, its heroes, the philosophy and the work that went into the crafting the Constitution itself, and of course why communism is in direct defiance of that Constitution. How it's not possible unless on a state level. In that respect, communism is constitutional on the state level. Communists, that just, hey, show us how well the communist state of Rhode Island is when you completely take it over and socialize everything and take from people who are rich, and you have a 15% corporate tax rate, and anybody sells a candy bar inside of your Ocean City or something like that they get taxed into oblivion. They don't want to sell their candy bar there anymore. Show us how it works with your price controls and everything else like that. Because as long as the state constitution is changed in some way that reflects the legislature and their constituents' will, then you can do things. You can socialize whatever the hell you want. You can be East Germany if you wanted to, over there in Connecticut and in Wyoming. If that's what you really wanted, that's constitutional communism. Do whatever the hell you want at the state level, as long as it's aligned with your state constitution. But what's going on right now? I mean, this is something that those lessons would have been taught to a lot more people, and they would have been made very clear as to why we have to do things like this in the United States to be able to ensure that we're prosperous, and that when we do screw up, the damage is localized. It's localized to wherever the bad idea was rolled out, and you're not taking all 50 states down with you. So that's the real issue here for me. It's always been about assimilation. There's a lot of people in this country who should not be here that have to go. They've been invited here by people who want to swap it all out. They want to swap out the electorate for a permanent underclass of people that can be easily controlled, that are always going to be looking to be taken care of. That's what it is. That's what it is. You don't have that has what. So I gotta ask about that. What do you do? I thought that a stoppage would be great. That would be wonderful. But that's only a start, because then you have to do some things on the inside, and you have to address education. You have to destroy the Department of Education. You have to make sure that whatever the hell states are teaching kids with is coming from in-state, and then they're going to have to find something worthy teaching. And then you're going to really see some things work. It's just going to have to happen that way. But that requires time and dedication. And do we have that kind of time? Do we have that kind of political will? I don't know. So just to be clear, it's not that every Muslim who wants to leave the Middle East or anywhere else and wants to come to the United States and wants to be an American and reveres the Constitution and can actually prioritize the Constitution should be kept out just because they're Muslim or whatever the hell. That's not it. The whole question is assimilation and how we can ensure that when a couple comes over, generation 1 off the boat, generation 1, 2, and 3, by generation 4, they don't get turned into, sloppy Joe brained commies. Everybody gets filled with bad ideas, some point in their time. But there's ways to mitigate these civilization destroying ideas, that's for sure. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. We have Tony Arburn coming up next because there's a little bit more here on the silver, precious metals end that I think is really interesting, and we'll get to him in a second. First, let's take a really quick break. And before we go on break, I've got to say on behalf of Badlands and the whole family over there, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Lindell and MyPillow employees want to thank listeners for all the continued support. Mike has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their lives. And you will go to sleep, or Mike will put you to sleep. He didn't stop by creating the best pillow. He created the best bed sheets ever, even though I didn't put the bed sheets underneath my knees today when I had 20 liters of blood taken from me. It was the pillow. Mike is offering the best deal on his Percal bed sheets. You can get a set for as low as $24.98. MyPillow Percal bed sheets are breathable, even if you're not, and have a cool, crisp feel. They have deep pockets to fit over any mattress. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for all of you. Also, for a limited time, when your order is over $100, you'll receive $100 in free digital gifts. An NFT, perhaps? Go to mypillow.com and use promo code BADLANDS to receive MyPillow Percal sheets for as low as $24.98, or call 1-800-795-5154, 1-800-795-5154, and use promo code BADLANDS. All right. Well, with that being said, we'll be right back.
Big.
Crestmont Bear says, look at that. I caught the show live. Frank is a bird nerd. I downloaded the Merlin app too. It's a great app. It's free. Your kids are going to love it. You're going to love it. Hey, would you blow me? Says 4 months is a joke. Now add in your licenses, be it business, driving, hunting, or fishing, your auto registration, inspection, and forced insurance, your property taxes. Try more like 2/3. You're going to make me depressed. Wants to be me to be depressed. It's true. You think about what we're left with, and it's tough. That's why I say sponsor the show at even a couple of dollars a month. Helps us compete. Because it's tough. Really is. That would be great if super chats would actually be, if this big beautiful bill goes through and we get no tax on tips, that would be wonderful. If somebody from the IRS would be held to the fire and have to say, yes, your super chats are not taxable anymore. That would be interesting. If that's actually treated as a tip, at least there's a couple $100 there. Some people are going to make literally tens of thousands a night. And that's vomitous. Jay Semo says, great show and great wrap-up conclusion from you following Rich. Thank you. Well, thank you. Let's bring on our good friend, Tony Arterburn. Tony is a host. He's a researcher. Of course, he does a lot of work inside the finance. He does a lot of monitoring of the financial situation that the world is in. He is the founder of Wise Wolf Gold and Silver, and set up Quite Frankly Gold for all of us over here, which has become a primary gold source and silver source for a lot of people in this audience now, including myself. I haven't acquired precious metals from anywhere else other than Tony since we met back. When was that, Tony? Like 2022, I feel.
Yeah, it's been over 3 years for sure.
Damn, things are real moving along, huh? Welcome back.
Moving along. It's great to be back, Frank. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Now, there's a lot I want to talk about, but you were a paratrooper. You're a vet. You've been around the world. You study a lot. You're a historian. And then, of course, you know how money works and you know how currency works along with it. And over the last couple of weeks, we've had bombs. We've had bombs away. I mean, I think last time we spoke, when we were talking about silver and how silver was jumping all around and predictions about silver going to $100 or something like that, you even mentioned that silver is integral piece of a lot of the bombs that are used by our military if there is a conflict. I don't know where you want to start with this all tonight, but I guess we can start with Iran. How did you read all of this stuff in the last couple of weeks?
Well, we've never quite seen anything like the events that unfolded over the past 10 days. I, as an amateur historian, somebody who studies geopolitics and foreign policy, having lived through some of the foreign policy decisions by the neocons and their class project known as the Iraq War, I learned a lot, but I've never seen, I've never heard of, because there isn't one example of a sitting president telling a city of 10 million people to evacuate. That's never happened. Or tweeting something like unconditional surrender with no pretext. That's never happened. So it primed the markets. It looked like there was going to be, and it still may be, by the way, it's probably way too early to tell if there's going to be cascading events. But I find it interesting, Frank, that the markets didn't move. As a matter of fact, I watched crude oil very closely over the past, over that 72-hour period. Crude oil actually went down, even with the news that the Iranians were going to close the Strait of Hormuz, or at least their parliament had voted for that. And I thought, what is it that multinational conglomerates and banking consortiums know that I don't? Because the markets did not respond to any of it.
Yeah.
The people did, the news outlets did. But something very strange just happened to us. I don't think that we really have any sort of example in the past to put it up against and compare it to, honestly, Frank.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it was going to be a follow-up question of mine somewhere along the way. And it was brought to my attention by a few friends of the show. And they said, Frank, you got to look into this because the markets are surprisingly steady, especially when it comes to oil, considering the region that's involved and everything else. And obviously, I'm not in the know, but if I'm going to use common sense, I would deduce that a lot of the power, where the power is vested, especially financial movers and shakers, who are not really concerned about this becoming a bigger situation than it was. And I don't know, when the Iranians missile barrage that was meant to save face, that people say, when that happened, I kind of I shook my head and I said, it's times like this that I wonder what kind of kabuki theater role the Iranians are playing in all this. Like Iran, the U.S. and Israel, is it possible that they're all just putting on a show? Because even the whole idea of saving face, but doing it in such a way that CNN, the New York Times are reporting on how you are calling up the United States, you're calling up Qatar, and you are saying, hey, can we make arrangements to clear out a little strip of desert for us to respond? You don't save face that way. It's pathetic. And I don't know I don't know. It seems the markets tell me, I don't know, they ask a lot more questions than there are answers, obviously.
Well, I agree with you. All the world's a stage. That was the first takeaway from the last week, was the non-movement in the markets. Even Bitcoin, which is pretty volatile to headlines, it held steady. It held strong. There was not a massive sell-off or a repositioning or anything like that. Now, gold didn't even, gold has hit its all-time high in the last, I think it's been about 60 days or less, where it hit $3,500 an ounce. It didn't reach that again. Silver didn't have a massive sell-off. It continues to stay in the mid $36 range on spot. So not a lot went on other than all of us who are, I think we're just so conditioned, Frank, because of the war propaganda, and especially if you served in these things where you get called up, you're just, like my nervous system, when I hear this kind of rhetoric, I automatically think, well, there we go again. Because that's what's happened in the past. But I just look at what the markets did to respond, and I sort of relaxed my position because I said, okay, well, if they're not doing anything, then I'm not going. I'm going to relax too, my posture, and I'm going to be more skeptical of what the next unfolding events are going to be.
Well, in that respect there too, because I want Donald Trump to be successful, because I wanted us all to be successful. And in looking at this, I held my breath. I said, oh, please, God, not again. And, here we go with this War Powers Act. And that's something that I would hope that on the way out, maybe we can get rid of, we can challenge its constitutionality, perhaps, so that Donald Trump, who was a guy who over, a great many years has presented himself as a guy who understands just how bad we've been screwed by the George Bushes and everybody else, who talked about these wars that were presented to the public in one way, but they weren't that way. I would love to see that all buttoned up and really, leave war making to Congress once again. But, who knows what this is really all about? We'll see coming down the line, because it's not like the other things. People say, hey, let him cook. Let him do his thing. Perhaps this was more beneficial than we know. And it's obviously did not lead to something big. I mean, the markets didn't even move. So it's something I just had to bring up with you up top. So that
you did.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Calls were made. Something happened that we're not privy to. There's some sort of underlying mechanism here that was pulled. Not sure exactly what that is or what the bigger picture is, but it wasn't like what we've seen in the past. And there was massive saber rattling without any. Thank God there wasn't much consequence so far. I'm sure they thought a lot different too about the summer of 1914 after the Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated in Serbia. I bet you there was a lot of pause there saying nothing happened. So hopefully that's not like this.
Right. Okay. Well, then I have something for you over here. This is a voicemail that was left to me by Eric. Eric from the audience. I forget where he works, but I don't know. Either way, let me know if you hear this. Hold on.
Okay.
Hey, Frank, it's Eric in London.
Do you hear Eric in London?
I hear it, yes.
Okay, so here you go. This is about 70 seconds long. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
I wanted to talk about gold and silver really quickly. I do my own technical analysis. I love looking at charts and all of that. Over the past few years, I followed gold very, very, very closely, waiting for the breakout to happen that happened over the past year or so. There was a particular chart pattern that occurred on gold called the cup and handle pattern. The same type of pattern is happening on silver.
Okay, before he goes on, what's the cup and handle pattern? Do you know?
It's the graph, and I forget exactly the terminology. You have like the candle and the cup and handle. It's like this is a terminology for trading on certain aspects of peak and then sell off. And I would be
okay.
I wouldn't be able to explain it as well as probably he can. So a lot of these day traders can do it way better than me.
It's just a common selling rhythm.
Yes.
Okay.
The breakout has not happened yet, but it's getting close. And the target for that brings silver to $100 from where it is now, about 36. So that's 3x right there. As Tony mentioned, silver is very much behind gold with that gold to silver ratio, but also with just generally in timing. Silver tends to move after gold. But I think right now, the current case we're in, it's very much delayed. And when you have an asset in consolidation for a long period of time, when it's kind of stuck in the same range for a long period of time, typically when it does finally break out up or down, it goes very, very explosively. So all these things are kind of combining together to suggest really big explosive moves on silver, potentially going up towards $100. So, great time to put some money in silver and let it just sit and wait for that breakout, wait for that big move to happen. All right, man. Have a good one. Peace.
Okay, so Tony, you're doing a lot of nodding of the head. What if you are in agreement with Eric's take? What would be a common catalyst for that kind of breakout?
I think it really goes back to the supply shock of silver and the above ground supply that we're about 200 to almost 300 million ounce deficits a year on average now for silver, for the demand versus the mining versus what's put on the market versus what's melted. And I think there's just more and more disparity between the paper trading markets and the physical supply. And a lot of what's happened with the Trump tariffs, I called that a black swan event that nobody was really looking to see. I don't think anybody factored in gold and silver in the tariff argument, And when that went down, a lot of these bullion houses started to clear out, and they moved a great deal of their metals back to the United States. And so a lot of these vaults were cleared out, and a lot of those contracts had to be settled. And it left, at least it left the imprint of the beginning of the end of paper silver. And I think a lot of analysts believe that for every 250 ounces that are traded in paper, Frank, there's about 1 ounce that exists in real life. So there's just too much disparity. The price has been suppressed too long. I was looking at the gold and silver ratio today. It takes 90 ounces of silver to make 1 ounce of gold. And of course, when gold hit its all-time high, 45 days ago or so, when at $3,500 an ounce, silver was at 35. So it was 100 to 1. And history unless we're in this modern, facade of markets, which is in the last 30, 40 years, that's never happened before in the history of mankind. So silver's always been at top end 20 to 1. So $100 silver is, and again, and neither you or I are calling for investments or anything. We're just saying the price restructuring is imminent. And it has to do with not just global demand, but as I mentioned, I was on the show last time, Russia and other countries are putting silver as a strategic reserve asset, like on their balance sheets again. China used to be the foremost holder of silver in the world prior to the communist takeover in 1949. That was like it was a silver standard by and large. But a great many countries are starting to put silver back on the balance sheet, starting with Russia. And I think that's going to have massive impacts as well. You mentioned the military industrial complex of the United States, and there's 500 ounces of silver, which is known as a monster box in my business. They put 500 ounces of silver in each Tomahawk missile. So the defense industry is very reliant on cheap silver, and we're the largest exporter of arms in the world. So profit margins go down if silver is revaluated, which may explain why JP Morgan Chase is so adamant about suppressing the price when they hold the most silver privately in the world. If you and I owned something and we were the largest holder, wouldn't we, like Bitcoiners, Bitcoiners are always trying to get that's podcasts and appearances and hyping it. And I agree with them. I like Bitcoin, but they want to get that price up. JP Morgan doesn't want the price of silver to go up, and yet they own the most.
You mentioned that the last time
right there. There's something else happening.
You mentioned that the last time. It makes no sense. I'm looking at the coin melt values as of today, or at least as close to current as it is. Gold at $3,321.87 for an ounce of gold, and then you have silver at $36.57. It makes no sense. That makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Right. It just makes no sense.
None whatsoever. Platinum, 1,430. Palladium.
Wow. Yeah, platinum's having a breakout moment. It was under 1,000 for years. I just kind of got bored with it because I have some customers that want platinum. I'm really thinking about putting some platinum in the wolf packs and my memberships again, because I think in maybe some small amounts of platinum, I think platinum's got some room now.
What about palladium? I see palladium here for $1,100.
The same. Palladium, and you could look at the price chart. I'd like to. I have to go back and look at the charts and see what its all-time high was. But palladium, that's trading very low from what I remember. But palladium has the same thing. Look, there was a tweet up on Gold Telegraph I read this morning for show prep, and I love that account. I don't have any affiliation with it, but it's some good information over on Gold Telegraph. And he tweeted out, he said, look, you have this intersection, this collision between infinite fiat and the finite commodities, which are just there's just colliding. That's what's happening in our world. Is the rest of the world is loading up too on rare earth minerals, precious metals, things like that. And against fiat dollars or yen or yuan, metals win, commodities win. They're always going to do better in the long run than the currency that is backed by nothing. And I think it's happening more rapidly than it has in the past, Frank.
That was actually a question that came in from the audience, though I forget who it's from, so I can't credit them. They asked, does Tony deal with any other metals and commodities such as rare earth metals and lithium? Before we get into that, I mean, there's a situation. I mean, when we were hearing about like those first volleys of ceasefire and potential ends to the Ukraine-Russian war out there, that it was a lot of rare earth mineral deals that the president wanted to sign with Ukraine to be able to recoup all of the money that we lost on this boondoggle of a proxy war. Is that the kind of thing that an ordinary person can get in on if they see an opportunity? Like what rare earth metals or minerals can someone like me or you, sink $1,000 into?
Yeah, you'd have to just find, you'd have to have a stock account like a Charles Schwab or something and find, a company that is mining them and that maybe has contracts. You'd have to drill down a little bit farther. I find I miss opportunities like that all the time, Frank. I'm so bogged down in my own, I'm pretty myopic because of the nature of my business, which I love, by the way. I'm in gold, silver, and Bitcoin, and I'd like other things, but I don't have time for them. So I think I probably miss out on a great deal of things. Copper is another.
I was going to ask about that.
Copper is something to watch. I need to start doing some stuff with copper too. We generally put like a 1 ounce copper round as a gift in a lot of the direct sales that we do, especially for like people from your audience. We do that a lot with and others. But I just think anything that's in that realm, commodities that are up against fiat right now, they're just going to do well, especially through this decade.
I'm looking at this on June 26, 2025. Copper is trading at approximately $5 per pound, or
Wow.
about 31 cents per ounce. So is that another situation? I've had this talk in the past there too, where someone has said, "Hey Frank, you want to talk about something else that is completely suppressed? Perhaps it's never going to compete with like the maximum potential of silver, but copper is worth so much more than
For sure.
than the trash that it's treated like." I mean, I know that it's been a while since our pennies have been copper, and but now the penny's gone altogether. So what are we talking about?
Well, yeah, anything prior to 1982 on our U.S. pennies are copper. And you can, anytime you get some change from the bank, you can just put those aside. You got copper right there. And the price of copper, it's just like silver. It's a lot of suppression and other things because of paper contracts and other just tradable. I think there's going to be more and more. I think the disparity in the decoupling of paper over the next 5 years will be astonishing, Frank. I think you look at the Shanghai Gold Exchange is building satellite global warehouses. So like franchise offices around the world so they can settle in physical gold. I think the trust factor too is worn down globally. The trust factor that was set up in 1944 at the end of World War II and the new economic world order at Bretton Woods when we became the world's reserve currency and we had the World Bank was set up and the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Everything that's happened to the monetary system since then has been an erosion of trust. And then we've just accelerated it over the last 10 years and especially the last 5. So I think the world is moving away from the dollar, de-dollarizing, not because I say so. It's just because that's what's happening. And I don't think anything's going to bring it back, not war, not anything. That ship has sailed. And I think gold, physical, and the way to track that is going to be the future. Things like Bitcoin will matter too, some of the stable coins, but it's going to be about trust. And right now we've eroded the trust.
I have a question for you about the war. It's a big question about the war. It has nothing to do with precious metals per se. But before I get there, since you're talking about eroding trust, I feel like for 36 hours at most, we were talking about putting pressure on Fort Knox to open up the vault and allow a serious inspection from Rand Paul or whoever else wanted to go in there. For a moment there, it sounded like even if from a in a whatchamacallit, an honorary way to bring Ron Paul in to Doge and let him do a little bit of work, that would have been so. I haven't heard anything about that in a while. But then again, this is your line of work. Have you heard anything about Fort Knox over the last month and a half?
No, they just shut that conversation down.
Shit.
Shut it down real quick.
What do you think? What do you think the reality is?
Why do I think so?
No, what do you think the reality is about what's there, if there's anything at all?
I do think that we hold a certain amount of gold. The problem is, and it goes back, there's some convoluted history post World War II, Frank. Some very convoluted history about who actually retains the physical contracts on that bullion. After 1933, Franklin Roosevelt told the American people through an executive order to turn in your gold. And a lot of Americans did. Some didn't. I buy their coins, their ancestors, I buy their descendants. I buy it from them all the time, every day between my two locations, that pre-1933 gold. But a lot of that gold was melted down, put into bars, and some of it was sent to the Bank of International Settlements. But there's this split in post-World War II, and it's worth looking into. I've looked into it. I'm continuing to research it, honestly, because I want to do some shows about it. But it's the record keeping of about 16,000 tons of gold are supposed to belong to the United States. If you cut that in half, that's what they say we actually have on the balance sheet. I think there's about 4,000 and some change at Fort Knox, and then the rest is split up around the country, and it goes to the Federal Reserve banks and other things. But there's a history there about the Federal Reserve being owed like 8,000 tons. So of that 16,000 we were supposed to have post-World War II, there's just a lot of shenanigans there and not a lot of great accounting. Again, we haven't had an audit of anything since the early 1950s, and whether or not that's accurate is there's a question mark that hangs over that as well. Gold is very secretive. If you notice, countries will show you the locations of their silos for nuclear weapons faster than they'll show you where their gold is stored. Russia's that way. China's that way. It's a mystery. Matter of fact, it's no coincidence, I don't think at all. The Chinese started to buy gold at the beginning of this century off the books and anonymously through third parties. The Chinese have 60,000 gold mines in China. They nationalize most of them. It's estimated they have about 16,000 tons. So I thought that was interesting. That was the estimation. That was a Kitco article about 6 months ago from an independent journalist who was trying to track how much the Chinese government actually had, which would put it beyond what the United States supposedly. I think there's a war right now. I think there's a covert, whether it's fifth generation, whatever you want to call it. There's something outside of our normal means of combat and adversarial work going on that it has a lot to do with the financial system. So that's probably why you don't know anything about Fort Knox at this point.
Okay. Oh, well, when you're talking about combat and you're talking about war and something that is a little bit bigger than what we might have thought would be, conventional. Are you getting anywhere near the AI Palantir Mosaic situation?
I pay attention to that because that technocracy is really what's on the horizon. Whether it doesn't really matter which party you vote for in this country. I mean, you get two choices. I mean, if that's really even a choice. But it's still trending towards technocracy. That's been the trend really since the early 1970s. This has been the arc of history that we're on. The ruling class wants to usher in that technocratic control using technology to supplant a lot of our values and the way that our systems have worked since the Magna Carta. So that's a challenge. And I like technology. I think I used AI today I keep subscribing to this thing for my podcast, and it's amazing what it does. I mean, it breaks down my show. It actually explains it correctly. Mm-hmm. I mean, it snuck up on us, didn't it, Frank?
It did.
It's like they had it for a while, and they're like, oh yeah, well, we got this thing. You might enjoy this, and of course it came post COVID 1984. I thought that was interesting. It was like, here's an introduction of something, and it's a disruptor for sure. But it's really amazing too. So I'm not against technology. I'm not exactly Ted Kaczynski, Unabomber, adversarial to technology, but I do think that in the wrong hands, the data mining that's going on, the Palantir stuff. I just know I covered a story today on my show that they just swore in 4 Silicon Valley executives and made them lieutenant colonels in the United States Army without training.
No, this is what I'm talking about. You're talking. Then this is this month too. In June of this month, the U.S. Army commissioned 4 senior tech executives from Palantir. Palantir, OpenAI, Meta, and I think Thinking Machines company, or I don't know, but they're lieutenant colonels in the new. And it's the Army Reserve Unit is interesting. The name there too, because they called it Detachment 201. Which, I mean, if the first thing you think about is not Event 201, then I don't know what planet we're on here.
I'll never forget Event 201.
So, I mean, and this is just, it made me wonder over the course of the exchanges with Iran and how sloppy some of it was and how bad the messaging was. The coordination of the messaging was so bad compared to other times when things were real and got out of control. And then, of course, it was just fighting for years. This was so short. And it was so short-lived, but so confusing. I started wondering whether or not a lot of this stuff was being, I don't know, like managed in some way or assessed by AI and driven in. So obviously you need humans to write off the order. But what if a lot of the battlefield intelligence that was coming in that was being given to the president was being provided by AI systems at this point? And perhaps I don't know. Maybe that was just a part of the reason why it was so out of control with confusion. Then again, we're kept in the dark, so that we're always confused. But the timing of all this was crazy, right down to the 201 again.
I didn't notice that. Yeah. But you would think, if the AI is accurate and it's actually pulling resources and it's learning, that any sort of operation in the Middle East, it's kind of like Eisenhower said about, any president who puts troops in a land war in Asia should have his head examined. Then following him was Kennedy, and then of course Johnson in Vietnam, and MacArthur said the same. Like, he begged Lyndon Johnson to stay out of Vietnam. But if it's an AI, if it's actually pulling data, it would say, if it's running simulations, they would go, oh, hell no, like that can't work. You're making all these same check the box for all these different mistakes that were made in the past. Perhaps AI would be on our side for that one. I don't know, but it's hard to say. Something went down though. It wasn't like. You got to even wonder, what was it even for? Like, it doesn't make any sense. There was no pressing issue. There was nothing that needed to be solved. I know there's a lot of pressure from the Israeli government for us to get involved, but other than that, what was it?
I don't know, because I just turned 40 years old, and maybe maybe I started paying attention to these types of this brinksmanship stuff in the news. Maybe I started paying attention about 25 years ago, 30, well, it definitely wasn't 10, but maybe 25 years ago, I started noticing who all the bad guys and the good guys in the news were, at least. Iran, North Korea, you had the Saddam Hussein when he was still alive. There's always something popping off in Syria, but you had Gaddafi for a while. Like, this was like these were the bad guys, at the opening of Naked Gun, when they're all in the room, it's like all of the rogue state actors in the Naked Gun. They're right there. I grew up with these. I knew Saddam Hussein because all I knew was the mustache, and he's from the desert. But when it comes to when it comes to this, that's just another one of those things I've known as long as I have paid even light attention to the pop culture aspect of geopolitics. And that is Iran is trying to make a nuclear weapon and they're only months away. It's been for decades. They've only been.
It's imminent.
Yeah, and then when you bring that up with certain people, they're like, yeah, well, that's because all that time they would get close, and we would either negotiate a deal that backed them off from the ledge, or I mean, there have been some things that we have to admit happen. Israel with the Stuxnet virus. I mean, they melted down centrifuges over there with that bug, that computer bug. That was a kinetic attack through digital means. So, I mean, it's been an issue, but of course we never get the full story. So all we get is 30 years of they're this close, but they never can push the ball past the goal line. I don't know. That's all I got.
You have to suspend disbelief. And then first of all, you hear from a lot of these foreign policy hawks and Israeli firsters who say, well, Iran is actually a suicide bomber nation. Like if they just got the bomb, as soon as they got it, they're just going to strap it on and they're going to run headlong into Israel and blow it up. I mean, that's really, you hear this stuff. And I think, well, they don't need the bomb for that. Like they can do that now and do more damage. So that doesn't make any sense at all. I've always thought that was a ridiculous argument, and none of these things ever come true. But there's a hobby horse, especially in conservative talk radio and the so-called right and the neoconservatives that are just, that is their focus. They are myopic. That is where they want to go. I mean, you can draw your own conclusions why, but that's where they are. They're focused on that and really nothing else.
Well, Tony, thank you so much for coming on to talk again. And also, I'd like to everybody to go check out quitefrankly.gold. It was set up by Tony, and all types of options for people just getting started on their precious metals stacking journey, because no matter what goes on in the world, this is one of the best ways to prepare. I mean, you definitely should have food stores, but this is a way to have a store of value to, in crazy times, it's a great way of just storing some value that you have earned over the years in in a commodity that doesn't change too much. Let everybody know some of the basics, Tony.
Yeah, for sure. And quitefrankly.gold, and we love sponsoring your show, and your audience has always been great. Have many customers that join the Wolf Pack. That's our subscription service. That's a monthly subscription, and we take time every week and rebuild those invoices, and you can start as low as $50 a month. We even have one for kids called Wolf Cub at $35 a month, and it goes all the way up to $5,000, everything in between, and you can do one-time orders too. So that's always a great way to stack. We pick your metals based off prices and analysis for that week, and everything goes out really quickly. And we do direct sales. We roll over IRAs, 401k. If you got a 401k or an IRA and you're in paper and you want to get into physical precious metals, just go to quitefrankly.gold. Somebody will talk to you that day. For sure. And we're very good on customer. I got a great team. Customer service is very good, and nothing gets through. I mean, it's like nothing falls through the cracks. So if you contact us, we'll take good care of you. And I love what I do. It's an easy thing. I mean, I'm just taking people out of the dollar fiat system and putting them in something that's been money for thousands and thousands of years. It's a layup, but I love what I do.
I know you do.
Also Bitcoin too. I mean, if you got Bitcoin needs, we do that as well.
Well, I thank you again for the time, my friend, and we'll talk soon. And all the best to you and your family.
Thank you, Frank. Same to you, sir.
All right, take care. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. That's we're almost at the end of a Thursday night. It's a Thursday night. Tomorrow's Friday. Like I said, you never know when I might go live tomorrow. Just won't be at 7:00. And who knows what happens in that hour, if anything. Let me get to the super chats, and I'll leave the lines open for a couple of minutes. 914-200-0269 for a quick comment. If you call in, give me a quick comment, because there's only a few minutes left. I'd like to get a couple of callers in. Let's see. Thank you, Witchy Poo. She's back. Here's to good friends with great company, and dropped an EMP over there on Pilled. You have no clue how helpful that is. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Sentinel says, war is not a good business. War occurs because we are imperfect humans. In the end, war is the imposition of political decision by force, not a libertarian idea. Yeah, I know. I'm starting to feel like libertarian ideals and ideas are something that is only afforded once wars are fought and won, and cooler heads prevail. Very hard to be a libertarian in the middle of a war. It really is. The Sentinel, again, says Donald Trump is a realist and has a vision. Most of the dichotomy, what is it? Most of the issues we have are narratives that are fake or manufactured. DJT is implementing his vision and will use force to end BS narratives. I'm looking forward to it. And again, I am very, very relieved that things didn't get worse than they are, than they ended. Let's see where it goes. And I hope that from here on in, it is just checking more boxes checked. Big wins all over the place. Let's see. And one more from the Sentinel says Congress passed the War Powers Act because they are pussies and don't want to declare war. Letting the president lead puts the risk on one person and gives them time to read the tea leaves. Yeah, it's unconstitutional. It's also a pussy move, and that's why it's got to go. 405, you're on the air. Quick comment. What's on your mind?
Well, it's not really quick, but I will try to make it as fast as I can.
Okay.
There was this grandma, little old lady that had a wreck on I-45 in Houston today, and she took a left turn in front of a semi.
Oh, boy.
That going down the interstate smashed, like when there was a dash cam for the semi, took all the windows out of the vehicle, like total. She got out of her car, grabbed a lawn chair and a revolver, and sat down in the middle of the interstate. They spent almost 5 hours trying to get her off of whatever it was. That I don't know what was going on with that poor woman, but it resolved with her surrendering that gun finally. I don't know how many people lost their jobs because they got, they were late for work or whatever. But anyways, I had to tell that story.
What was she?
It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Was she Iranian?
No, she was an elderly black woman.
And she turned into a tractor trailer, had her car totaled, but she survived without a scratch, or at least survived enough to get out of her wrecked car, grab a lawn chair from the back as well as a revolver, and then set up shop in the middle of the highway?
Yes, sir. That's exactly what happened.
Okay. Well,
and there was no visible cuts or anything on her, and for hours she sat there.
Okay. Well, do me a favor. You got to send me a video for that. I got to see this, and also turn your feed down when you call into the show. I want to see that. Definitely want to see it, no doubt. So you got my attention. 413, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Frank. Grady from Massachusetts.
What's up, Grady? Good to have you on. What's your thought tonight?
Well, I tried to get through yesterday. Check out SG Anong's show yesterday. He talks about War Powers Act. And I was slightly distracted, but if I understood him correctly, shortly after 9/11 and all that BS, Congress passed a resolution authorizing the president to declare war by himself. And that was a workaround. So it's a good episode to check out.
Okay. Well, thank you, Grady.
Okay. You're welcome.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Now, the easy response to that is if Congress passed anything like that or buried it in any bill, it's not constitutional. I'm sure they'll do it. They have the balls. They have the balls to pass a lot of things that they're not able to do. And we go along with it because we have the American tradition is just continuing on with ill-informed, ignorant, bad traditions that only really help them. only really help them. That's why they become so, so rich. That's why they become so rich, because then all the lobbyists would be just, they wouldn't know where to go. They'd have to go down to the state level. I mean, people at state legislatures would be making a lot more money, that's for sure, because you couldn't just go to 60 or so senators out of 100 and make sure that they're all going to vote one way on a piece of legislation that really, really, is going to make you a couple of $1 trillion as a defense contractor somewhere, instead of having to go to thousands of people across 50 states to be able to get that to happen. You think about it. You think about the powers, the decisions that 548 or so people, when you take all... You think about the powers, the decisions... You shut your goofy mouth up. Who the hell's that? Talk when I'm talking, bitch. Anyway, it's not allowed. That's all there is. We are going to allow the president to declare war on anybody. We're going to bury it on page 239. It'll then become law, and that's just the way it is. Now, when Chrisanne Hall comes on, I got to talk to her about that again. There is challenging it in court and finding a court that is willing to be American and not just representing the machine. And then, and also knowing exactly what depends on all that stuff. The president's ability to unilaterally make war and deploy the military anywhere and direct it all over the world under the auspices of an ongoing emergency or a tense situation or whatever the hell like that. I mean, that there's a lot of money in that business. There's a lot of money that can be disrupted if all that doesn't end. If the ability for the president to just send billions upon billions of dollars to a war zone in Ukraine that we are not technically a part of, even though we're sending all of the money and all the equipment and all the intelligence to use the equipment and the people to train the people to use the equipment. And nobody else. None. Nobody else. It's not our war. We couldn't go that far. It's not our war. It's not our business. Let's see. What else do we have? Hey, would you blow me too? Says the suppression of gold and silver is to hide how worthless the money in your pocket is. Take $1 and times it by 2%, and then take $1.02 times it by 2%, and then add so forth for 54 years for close to real inflation. So there you go. Go and do the math and depress yourself tonight. Do it. Pablo Wenscabar says, great show, Frank. Rich and Tony are top shelf. They really are. I love talking with them. And I appreciate you all for sending support into the show. Let's see. So Captain Power and Soldiers of the Future. That was the toy. It looks like it is. John Volts also says, Frank, did you get the Getone I sent to your post office box? You can give it away for a gift for other super chatters if you want. No, I have not been to. I will be going to the P.O. box tomorrow. I got an email that a couple of things arrived, though. So I will be going to the P.O. box tomorrow with Aurora. And then who knows? Maybe daddy and daughter will, on the way back home from the P.O. box, stop by the studio, put on the air conditioner, and do a 20-minute broadcast where she's the host because she's got things that she wants to talk about. I don't know. Maybe. Let's see. 9:02. We're making good time. The show's over. That's all I have for you guys tonight. That's all I have. And yeah, so next week I have really wonderful guests that are coming on, starting with Jeff Harmon on Monday night. That's going to be a nice trip across the stars. That'll probably encompass everything from the economy to war to what's coming up over the Independence Day weekend and into the rest of the protest summer. Is there any gas left in that tank? Who the hell knows? Always going to be fun. Plenty of time for calls. In fact, I know what we can do in the second half of that show. I got a lot of strange AI news as far as AI induced retardation. That'll be fun. And Chris Ann Hall, you have Jay, you have Nephilim Death Squad. It's going to be a really great week next week. And all of this stuff takes many hours to do every day. And sometimes I stay up late into the night to make sure that I have a good head start for the day after. And I do it just like Tony Arburn does it, because I love talk. I love this show. I love putting it together. I love the friendships that we make along the way. And I really enjoy that many of you enjoy it. And if you are one of those people who enjoy it every night, I ask you, from one voluntarist to another, become a sponsor of the show. It is always going to be live and free Monday through Friday, wherever the hell you feel comfortable. Free to watch Monday through Friday at 7 o'clock. But there's so much more going on behind the scenes. Members only stuff that you will love. There's the culture clubs, there's films and books, and there's music, live music that's coming into the fold again finally. Become a sponsor, even if it's at $5 a month. It doesn't matter. There's so many wonderful tiers on Patreon and Subscribestar that are open, from pen pals to postcards and Polaroids. I'm actually going to be writing a stack of postcards out tomorrow. We're going to have special edition postcards that we're making soon. All that could be found on quitefrankly.tv/sponsor. 3 options to sponsor: Patreon, Subscribestar, or directly right through the website. And you get all the same things now, because the website has a members only section that acts as our own little Patreon and Subscribestar, where I put pictures and videos and all that, share the live links, and that's all. Love you all. Thank you again to Badlands for having me on tonight. I really enjoy Thursdays because of that, and so much more coming down the pike. So enjoy your evening, and thank you. Listen, I had blood taken today. So what? It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It just went in, it came out, and we'll see how my cholesterol is. It's not a big deal. Really, don't worry about me.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Boy, I'm going to go home and sleep with my wife.